Welcome to another episode of Meet the Zor, Rolling Suds, Power Washing. Coming up next. All right, Aaron, we start with you, and then, we'll see where it goes. But how did you, Aaron, accidentally fall into franchising?
Well, as you know, Nick, most people just fall into franchising. You don't usually find franchising finds you, kind of thing. So I had a buddy who worked in franchising, and he told me about it, and I thought it was just like McDonald's and Chick-fil-A. And he told me about service businesses, and he worked for a big carpet cleaning franchise, and told me I should come work for him, or not for him, but with him. And I've been in it ever since.
What year was that?
That was in 2017.
Go back to the day before you fall into this thing. Did you understand what franchising was?
No, I really didn't. And I also didn't understand like what franchise development was, because I had done sales, but franchise development is a completely different type of like sell. It's not even really a sell. It's recruiting, it's consulting, it's, there's a variety of different things with it. But no, I mean, I had to kind of get in and see it. And it took me a few years to kind of really understand what it is that we were doing and why and all that kind of stuff.
You know what's interesting about that? It's the same insight. Everybody has the exact same story. But I still find it interesting. And I'll keep saying it until franchisors change this approach. Whenever a candidate gets to a franchisor's website and you look at it, it usually says some sort of thing about franchising or industry. And I'll pull up yours too, because it will tell the same story, right? But we're expecting the franchisee to understand what franchising is.
Right.
And I think this is partly where the broker community has exploded. It's because they're saying, well, you have some money. We can match you with a brand. Along the way, we're going to educate you what franchising is. But nobody pauses and says, hey, franchisee, let's tell you what it is. Because if it's you or it's me, who both of us are now intelligent in franchising, we didn't know what it was. And here we're and I'm glad that you said the second part of that on sales versus development. At the end of the day, we're asking someone to invest their life savings into a business they have little to no control over and switch a career. Like that's complex,
Yeah. It's completely different. I mean, they have to believe in themselves just as much as they have to believe in the franchisor.
So now 6 years later of doing this, where has your career gone? Give me a glimpse of that.
Yeah. So I started in franchise development, helped scale that carpet cleaning franchise that was purchased by a platform company, but they bought us to help them scale into more brands. They bought a brand in the drywall repair space. It needed some help from an infrastructure standpoint. That was in COVID. So we put some infrastructure in place, and then I scaled that business by 223 locations in 24 months. And what I'm super proud of is all those locations opened, which I feel like needs to be talked about more. Yeah. And they opened with estimates on the calendar, full-time labor hired prior to going to training. So we had built some really good systems. And then we had also scaled the platform company that I was a part of up to 12 brands. So from 3 brands to 12. So I watched kind of a platform company scale to the second largest from a unit count perspective next to Neighborly. And then I was like, they wanted me to kind of do a 13th brand for them and take on a couple other brands. And I was like, I can do this on my own. As most entrepreneurs do.
Yeah.
Looked at about 24 businesses in the middle of last year to franchise. Good core businesses. Met the founders of Rolling Suds in September of last year. And the best business I looked at, I raised capital, built a team, and we started franchising in February. And we've now got 47 units across 16 franchisees in 13 states.
And those are open, right?
We had our first training in in June. So we've opened 15 locations because we've had 2 trainings now. So we've opened 5 franchisees, 15 locations. And then everyone else, we've got 2 more franchisees opening in 2 weeks, which will be another 7 territories. And we open them all at the same time.
Yeah.
And then everyone else who's signing up is opening Q1 of next year, and we'll launch 15 to 20 locations a month for the first four months of next year.
That's great. So a few things I want to call out on that process. I once wrote a column titled "Catch the Entrepreneur Before They Catch You." And so if you think about the situation, like your last company could have said, here's what we're willing to give you to be a partner in our company instead. And this is, a lot of companies go through this. It's not unique to your situation, but they miss it. They don't see the entrepreneur in you. They say that he's going to go do his own thing. And then I think there's an underestimation of the value of the chip on the shoulder. Tom Brady certainly had it. Michael Jordan had it when he got cut from his basketball team. And so for entrepreneurs, that is such fuel that you just bounce right through brick walls. And now you took a business category that existed, fragmented in power washing. It's more mom and pop. Saw an opportunity, went through the pain of raising capital, which puts tons of risk on you anyway, but you believed in something and you put it to work, and now you have units coming on. And I think that's deeply valuable. How much of the delivery of that story comes out in the way that you're talking with franchisees, and how are they buying from you? Are they buying? Does it matter that it's power washing? Could it be any widget now that you've perfected like systems and operations?
I mean, from my perspective, I could have franchised any business that I just brought some same systems that I had from other brands and just made them a little bit better. And then, I could have brought that to painting or HVAC or insulation and just decided on power washing, and then pulled data from years back from our corporate location to determine I invested my own capital. I'm the biggest shareholder in the company. And so I thought that was really important. And then we've built a team of, including me and the founders, 13 people.
In today's world, and out of curiosity, I want to know the breakdown of where you got your franchise buyers. But in today's world, the broker community has almost cannibalized the infancy buyer, meaning in 2008, they land on a franchise portal to see what exists in the category. Today, they get swallowed up by a franchise consultant. Is that where the bulk of your deals are coming from? And then does opportunity of the future change so that, and I mean this in the kindest way. It's the way that it works, but you have to pay a large commission for that, which then depletes some of the capital that you have to make a franchisee successful. At some point, it has to neutralize. Like the industry is too hammered by that. But any comments on any of that stuff?
Yeah. So I mean, the cost structure that I've built internally, and all of my relationships come from prior brands.
Yeah.
They allow us to hang on to a good amount, the majority of the franchise fee. But the consultants that I work with, and we do all of our deals with predominantly one network, they trust me. They know that I have good intentions. They know that we are building a franchisee company, and that, my mission is to help franchisees be successful. And I think that goes a long way with a lot of consultants. So my cost structure, and we do all the franchise development in-house. I do it currently. So we're not outsourcing to like a franchise sales organization or whatever. Like, it's all done in-house. So we actually are able to take the majority of the franchise fee and invest it back into infrastructure for the business.
I think that's so vital. I think that's something, and again, it's my opinion, but when the franchisor has the funds to make a franchisee successful, they have a better shot at doing it. You eliminate all those funds from the franchisor, now it becomes more of a crapshoot. And it is what it is. Franchise fees have gone up. Some brands charge grossly higher than a McDonald's, and it's like, are you McDonald's? I'm like, no. So and you support more than McDonald's? Well, no. So I think that's it's important that you've taken that approach. I think that's the way it works. I do think, and I hear it in some of your infrastructure that you put around previous brands. When you're talking about power washing, I mean, kids. I'm sure there are children who love spraying aggressive things on things, but passion for the category is not there. So then the passion turns into aligning how much savings have you built up to what is your potential earnings versus I've always dreamt about owning a home service brand. So at some point, like culture has to go above all that, which, I can see this in your position, even on your site. Like when you're saying here's the vision of me, like know who I am. You're saying buy the culture, get passionate about a good business culture, then we'll talk about what the business is.
Yeah. And I don't talk about the business until I give them my background anyways.
Yeah.
I want people to know what we're doing and what our goals are before, like, let me tell you about how big the power washing industry is. Like, frankly, I don't even talk about it in conversations. I'm talking about, hey, there's this space that is super fragmented. There's a bunch of guys, like very similar to like the junk business in the 90s. Like it was very much like just a dude in a truck who put junk in the back of his truck. And then 1-800-GOT-JUNK came in and was like, no, this is a really big business, and completely professionalized the industry. And that doesn't currently exist in the power washing space. But the people that I'm talking to become franchisees aren't passionate about power washing. They see an opportunity to build a really big business. And so they're looking at it from an economic and, yes, a culture standpoint. Do they fit in the culture?
What's your dream now? Where does this dream with this business go? And like you've been a part of multi-brand, which ultimately, like once you know who the customer is and what their wallet behavior is like, you can solve other problems for them. Does that come into play? What your dream is?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to add other brands, undoubtedly. And the dream, and I tell this to my team, is to build a franchise system where every franchisee comes in with the goal of us supporting them to achieve their why. And every franchisee is going to have a different why. And so the support that we provide that franchisee is going to be different than someone who has a different why. And we'll always kind of clap back to that why. We actually do a why call before they open. We ask them questions. I don't know if you're familiar with Simon Sinek, but there's really meaning there of like, why are you starting a business? Why are you taking this huge risk? Why not stay with a job? And kind of, there's going to be ups and downs in getting that. So my vision is to build this business and to be the biggest power washing company in the world by helping franchisees achieve their why and helping them be as successful as possible. Then find other niches within in the still residential and commercial services industry and professionalize those businesses as well to make those be the biggest in the world. Bring those businesses before we take them to market to the franchisees enrolling Suds, give them the opportunity to buy another business that can increase the enterprise value of the business that they've been spending time on for less, because we won't have certain fees to pay, stuff like that. So give them a discount so they can get in and just rinse and repeat.
So a few comments. One of my goals for our company, I'm calling the dream catcher, is I think far too often we don't ask what someone else's purpose is. We talk in business what our purposes are. And I love that you do a why call. Secondly, as you were saying that, like I do know who Simon Sinek is, but isn't it amazing? Like the question of your why has been around forever, but that guy owns the definition. Yeah. Like what is the why? Like everybody attaches him to why, and that like, who, what, where, when, why was a lot around long before Simon Sinek was. But that guy owns that. Like that's what I want to do.
It's wild. Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, let's switch over to the business opportunity, because what I like is that if there is a ghost candidate that watches this and says, okay, I'm into this, I like where the vision's going, and yeah, I would like to continue to scale my business first with one and then with others. What else do you want them to know about the business opportunity that we haven't talked about so far?
So when we launched 223 locations in 24 months, every single one of those franchisees left with either jobs or estimates on the calendar and a full-time laborer hired prior to going to training. We were not bringing on guys that were doing the drywall patching themselves. For this business, we're not bringing on people who want to do the power washing themselves. We're looking for people who want to build assets, not jobs. And so we've just taken that same infrastructure, beefed it up this time, picked a simpler business model that doesn't require skilled labor, and found a business that has a proprietary cleaning process where we can clean buildings in, 3-4 times faster than anyone else.
Yeah.
And so the goal of the company is to provide that same experience, and that is what we've had for launching this brand. Franchisees have left with estimates on the calendar and 2 full-time employees hired prior to going to training, and that's our primary focus as we ramp them up. And so, I just want people to know, if they're interested in coming into being a franchisee with us, is that that's our goal, and that's how our infrastructure on the front end is built. And we have marketing companies that generate leads for franchisees, and a call center that answers the calls, and recruiting programs that help them find employees. Like, there's a ton of infrastructure. And even though we're a new brand, it's not new infrastructure. I just took all the things I've learned and just made them better this time.
Out of curiosity, when you were raising capital to do this, because obviously you're buying equity from the founders so that you can now be the majority partner. But when you're putting the numbers to paper, there was bootstrapping, and then there was raising far beyond that to build this infrastructure. Did you surpass bootstrapping in your initial approach?
Yeah, I definitely did. And I didn't. So the way I structured the deal, and this is pretty awesome. I didn't know this deal existed. I just, in my mind, was like, this is what it should look like. They completely own their business. I acquired the franchising rights, and they partnered with me in a new business, which is the franchise entity that didn't exist prior. And so I raised capital for that business so that we could build infrastructure. And I surpassed the bootstrapping element because we're turning away more people than we're bringing in. And I'm telling you, you have to do that as an emerging franchisor. So many emerging franchisors will just take a check from anyone because they need the check. You need a lot of capital to franchise the right way, because you got to build a team to support the franchisees before you have franchisees. And you got to be able to turn people away that aren't right. So we've turned away 26 people in the last 8 months that wanted to write checks that weren't right. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't raise more capital than I needed.
Yeah.
And we have a team, like I said, of 13 people, including me and the founders. So we're built for a 300 unit system now.
Yeah. So a few comments. One, most franchise consultants to an emerging brand before they're a franchisor, they might throw out a term like $100,000 to franchise your business and $100,000 to get this thing going. But the reality is, like, if I were just going to hire you as a company, that doesn't cover it. And so obviously that's a part of your investment. You're occupying that role within the organization. But it takes a lot. You put it there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, you're good.
They had paid a consultant, the amount of money to get them an FDD and an operating agreement and or operations manual. So they realized afterwards they needed a lot more capital, and it was going to take away from their $2+ million power washing business.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, and I also like what you said about you invested in the franchise company. I think that's ultimately the right decision, because it's a completely different business. Like, when a founder goes into franchising, they're a multi-business owner. They don't see it that way because nobody coaches them that way. But it's such a vastly different thing. And the client acquisition costs, like whatever you're paying a broker, that's a big expense. This isn't cheap. And for you to build this to actually scale, like, that's not cheap. So, but you're the only reason you're doing it is because you see the vision, it's possible, and you've seen it with other brands, and other brands couldn't capture you before you went and did it on your own. So, that's all part of this.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm going to the International Franchise Association's conference for emerging franchisors next week in New Orleans. And Matt Haller asked me to be at the keynote at the event, and to all the emerging franchisors. So I love giving free advice to emerging franchisors. So I'm going to get up there and tell them actually what it takes to do this the right way. I mean, if you follow me on LinkedIn or any of the platforms, like, responsible franchising is right underneath my name. Like, I talk about it in most of the posts that I put. You need to franchise responsibly. And that's the way that the franchising model is going to go into this next generation, is doing it the right way. And there's so much misinformation for emerging franchisors. They don't know what it takes. They don't know who they need to hire or what kind of capital they need.
Yeah. I think that's That's the right approach. The number, it's like 67% of first year franchisors don't sell a unit. And if I had to equate that to something, it's undercapitalized and false expectations. And it's good that you're taking the right approach. You've been around the block, and now you got a shot to do this as a franchisor. And it's really, really great to hear your story, Aaron. And thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I'm glad we're finally able to meet and talk about franchising. I'm sure this won't be the first or the last time by any means. I'm looking.
We got a lot of there's a lot of updates coming. So
yeah,
when you have updates, we need to hear them. But
of course.
I'm glad we got to connect, and thanks for sharing a little bit of your story.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
For Aaron, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.